I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. It's October 10, 2024. This is the regular meeting of the regular monthly meeting of the Smithfield Township Planning Commission. Looks like we have a full roster today of everybody who's here. All right, first thing, we've got two sets of minutes, August 8th and September 12th. Take a look. We never read them both today. Yeah, these I did read. I'm okay.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of the August 8th. Second.
All right, motion by Dave Strzok, second by Doug Schreiber. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, now about the September 12 minutes.
All right, well, I move that we accept them.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion, any adjustments, anything? Okay, all in favor? Okay, minutes are accepted. All right, we have a couple of things under old business here. I understand that there were two requests for items to be tabled for this month. That would be the 3 Point Garden Road major subdivision and the Whitmer Land Development Plan. I mean, I certainly don't have any problem with it, but Ron, we don't have any problems with the 3 Point Garden Road time frame, do we? I mean, their request anyway.
It's getting tight, but I know Julia sent out a note to them saying that they need to get an extension filed. I think they're good till October
Okay, well, it's up to them. Don't worry about it. If it says-
24, and of course, the sketch plan, there's no deadline, so.
Doesn't it automatically just add on 30 days if they request it be tabled?
Not unless
No.
unless they say they're extending 30 days.
No, then they have to ask for it to be extended otherwise, yeah. Yeah, they don't have to have it considered at this meeting, but they're gonna run into their own problems, so.
Move the table.
Yeah, I think we'll just leave both, yeah, I don't even know if we need a motion, we'll just say that they, at the request of the applicant. 5B and 5D will be tabled, to the November meeting. Okay. All right, we have two other things under the old business. The bed and breakfast ordinance updates and the water gap wellness land development plan. Let's talk about the bed and breakfast one first, so. What is it that we need to do on this? Are the supervisor?
I think the last time, Mr. Chair, when we looked at it, the Monroe County Planning Commission either had not weighed in or their weigh-in had not yet reached our folders. And then looking at that, they're basically saying that the owner should reside at the property.
Yeah,
The ordinance we have written is that the owner or their designee shall reside at the breakfast or a contiguous property. So they don't necessarily have to reside on the property itself, according to how we've written it. I guess Planning Commission, Monroe Planning Commission is saying maybe.
our feed is, hang on, Ron, our feed is frozen.
That's a nice shot.
Which I wouldn't complain about so much, except that we need makeup here for the shine of my poor head here, I mean. Yeah, let's do that, because people do check on it.
The supervisors specifically inserted we're living on adjacent property here, so that's a change we made. And the other thing I think is different, and there's the planning commission had recommended we have sort of a split between 1 to 3 guests and 3 to 6 guests, and then if it's 3 to 6, we should have. I think that's an exercise we don't need. It's like wow. So at least my view is to reject both of those, and I know as in terms of the first one, which is allowing the proprietor to reside in an adjacent property when the guests are there, we all approve of. So those are the only change. Everything else is the same.
So this is gonna allow Airbnb then?
No.
If
More than one.
If you wish, Mr. Chair, in a minute, I can run through what the things are, so everyone then is aware.
Yeah, let's see what they're.
All right, it's going to be a by right use, anywhere that, the principal and accessory buildings have to meet yard setback, building height coverage requirements. Maximum of 6 guest rooms or bedrooms per structure. Length of stay of guests shall be limited to a maximum of 14 contiguous days. The owner or their designee can be at the property or at a contiguous property. Off-street parking shall be complied with whatever our ordinance basically says. Exterior lighting shall be directed away from adjacent properties. Water and adequate sanitary facilities shall be provided. Drainage facilities shall be provided. The bed and breakfast must provide a free breakfast to guests, but breakfast may be served on site or provided by the proprietor at a nearby restaurant. If breakfast is not served on site, this must be made clear in advertisements and reservations. And the bed and breakfast must comply with the hotel excise tax and registration, etc. Those are the requirements of this ordinance is written.
Okay,
In any district,
I believe so.
by right, in any district.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Let me just make sure.
I thought it said, section 2 on this R1, RC and ED. Guess that is almost that. That is most of it. So that's the planning commissions.
Yeah, see, section 1, I'm looking here. Section 1, it says it's a principal use permitted in all districts.
Would that be, not that it matters, but
It would be industrial, it would be, I don't know who would want to do that in an industrial, but again, you can make recommendations to say, no, it shouldn't be in that zone, it should just be in residential zones, the residential, the resort, et cetera. That's your call.
all right. I mean, really, where isn't as important as how. The mechanics of this. All right, because, there are a couple of things in here that, I can't, I don't understand if you're gonna call it a bed and breakfast, and I can serve breakfast there, what's the point? I don't see. I can't possibly recommend that. It's just
the
it's the bed and the breakfast, except for the breakfast part, and because usually that's the bed and breakfast type of a thing is done where it's
I think our logic was to say that since we have an absolute prohibition on short-term rentals, this was a way for at least allowing what is a resort area to have some alternatives, and also if people wanted to make a little income with their house, they could do it as long as they were there to control it.
yeah, but they're not there.
Well, adjacent.
You said adjacent, but they're not there.
Contiguous, yeah.
Well, in other words, they have to live in that house or
Right.
on an
That's a bed and
immediately
breakfast,
adjacent property.
okay, but a bed and breakfast is they're living there. And living at the adjacent place is not the same as what you would typically think
Well,
of as a.
you have to be there when guests are present, so I think our.
Is that what the ordinance says?
Huh?
Does the ordinance say that, specify it?
It says that the proprietor has to be on either the property or an immediately adjacent property when guests are present. Is that right, Ron? Mike?
On a contiguous property when overnight guests are present.
So trying to liberalize it a little bit to give people an opportunity to maybe have this business or at least have tourists that can have an alternative to a hotel here. Since we only have, 2 hotels? The Staybridge Inn and the Shawnee Inn.
So let's say it's a 4-bedroom, house. That's 4 cars in the parking lot max.
In their parking lot. It has to be off-street parking.
Yeah,
Is it limited to 6 guests, Robert? Yeah, so.
Total 6 guests.
Yeah.
And I think the limit of the stay is 14 days, isn't it?
Right, that's what he said.
Yeah.
says 6 rooms,
Right,
say
that's-
6 guests.
That doesn't necessarily mean 6 guests.
Well, yeah.
It says 6 rooms are rented.
Rooms.
Doesn't say
Maybe
6
12 or
guests.
13 guests or
We're
14
said 4 to
guests.
6 guests and
Well, we could
It
limit
says
it.
4 to 6 guests?
one in the planning commissions, you know.
Oh. 6 rooms.
Say 2 guests per bedroom or something like that if you want to.
6 rooms could be kitchen, living room.
Well, for 2 guests and a child.
What do you want it to be?
I can't hear you.
What do you want it to be? I mean, what's the objective? What's
What's
the,
the
what's the
objective?
goal in terms of the number of people and what's the
Well,
limitation?
what we want is to have more tourist options, first of all. In a tourist area, we really don't have anything.
Okay.
So, it's that, and it's liberalizing the rules in a way that maybe we'll get more people to do this, rather than what we have now, which is one part-time bed and breakfast, which is the Stony Brook. That's it, and Pete Ferguson doesn't even take you unless you're an old friend of his. So, in essence, we don't have anything.
Okay,
The option to go to a nearby restaurant, would they have to pay at the nearby restaurant?
No, that you have, the breakfast has to be either provided on site
Or
or
included?
provided by, whatever voucher is, it would be the equivalent. And you have to tell people beforehand that that's the way it's gonna be before they register. So, anyway, our feeling was liberalize it, let's see what happens, because maybe it's will encourage people. And it doesn't seem to matter which zone, because, you could be in R1 and do it just like the Stony Inn. The Stony Brook Inn is essentially in R1, even if it's a carve out there. Doesn't seem to be any harm to anybody. So
It's on my street.
that's our philosophy.
Okay. So I form an LLC. I buy the neighbor's house. I form an LLC, I buy the neighboring property.
You're gonna live.
To run a bed, no, the LLC can live anywhere.
No.
So it can't, the only humans can be the ones that live. LLCs can be located, but they don't live.
Well, an LLC is then the proprietor.
No, an LLC is a separate legal entity. It is not a proprietor.
Well,
Has to be a member that is for an LLC to buy it. So I buy it, I'm the LLC one. I'm not gonna give them breakfast, they can go somewhere else, and I can have 4 rooms. I'm basically running an Airbnb next door to, I'll say me, but maybe not me, cause it's an LLC. And maybe I'm not the member.
who's the proprietor?
That's not my problem, you're the one that wants to do this. The proprietor, if you're gonna do it as a proprietor must live next door, then you're going to prohibit any kind of corporate style ownership, that's the only way you can do it that way. And it also, if they're gonna do it this way, you would have to automatically sever and terminate the permit if the one that's living next to it moves. You can still own the property, but it'd have to automatically go, it'd have to
Well, I
automatically
think that's
terminate.
good. It's good. I mean, a permit is a yearly permit, so it shouldn't be terminated. There's no proprietor, and, as you say, the proprietor must live either in the building or next door to the building. That's it.
Mhm.
So even if it's an LLC, somebody has to be the proprietor who's on site or next door to the site who's responsible.
A member of the LLC has to be on site,
if
Okay,
it's an LLC.
yeah.
So the
shareholder.
big reason we tried to get, well, we did,
Yes.
we did get rid of the short-term rentals is because they became party houses and it was becoming
right.
very disruptive to the adjoining property owners.
No one was on the site, no one was on the property,
Yeah.
no one was
They live
managing
in
it.
state sometimes.
So is there any way to monitor or limit that from happening in this situation with the bed and breakfast? Just because the guy's living next door doesn't mean he's going to police them and tell them.
No, I guess one of the ways would be, first of all, if there's any problem or, it seems to be, being degraded into something that we don't want, we could pull the permit.
Should there be language in here that says, you know, operating hours, quiet hours?
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
if
There
it's
should be.
not going well, we can pull your permit. I mean, I think there should be something
I
in there
agree,
with
good
that.
idea.
Yeah. And also, when you talk about the, exterior lighting shall be directed away from all adjacent properties, does that mean that's the only rules they have to follow, or do they also have to follow, once we get enacted, our lighting ordinance, as well as
Noise.
noise ordinance?
Yeah, they have to follow those, because they're camping.
But when you mention it's separate, does that,
No,
I would think our intention is to have to follow both the lighting and the nuisance ordinance.
shouldn't we just say that, instead of saying lighting shall be directed away? Just say, follow the lighting ordinance, follow the noise ordinance,
Absolutely.
so that they go back to
Yeah,
that,
that's easy.
because if they see this, that's gonna think all they have to do is point the lights, and it doesn't give them levels or anything like that. There's no criteria.
Let's say, that's what we're trying to do, right?
When the board puts that for adoption, we will have to include this provision as part of those that get modified when the lighting ordinance standards get the board adopts them.
Okay.
So basically, if this comes first, I'll have to, the board will have to put that in the ordinance that G gets adjusted accordingly.
And then also, when it talks about the portable water and adequate sanitary facilities, that's kind of ambiguous. You know, what does that mean? And how do we know that the system can handle it? Of course, if they're on, the municipal system, do they have enough EDUs? Does the sewage have enough EDUs? If they're on lot system, can that on-lot system handle
Well,
the additional flow?
it's a good question I can ask the sewer authority. Usually with a single, let's say, it's a single family house, but it's got 4 bedrooms. I'm sure, what is it, 1 EDU? It's just made to cover the whole thing, but it's a good question.
Yeah.
What if you have 6?
Yeah, but if it's 4 bedrooms, it was probably, you know, mom, dad, and 2 kids,
Yeah.
3 kids,
Could be.
not 8 to 12 people, you know, in the house.
I agree.
Yeah. So what are you looking for from us tonight? You looking for just comments, or are you looking for approval?
We're gonna, you know, whatever comments you make, we'll take up when we get this on our desks in the next week, but, Alex, are you taking notes on some of this stuff?
Yeah, we're taking notes.
Yeah.
I mean, the on-lot, it's probably not, the on-lot sewage. You know, if you have a large number of people very frequently for long quantities of time and that sewage facility wasn't built. You know, maybe was built in the 1980s before the current SEO was permitting these things. You know, on-lot sewage facilities might have some challenges if you have too many people.
I think all these suggestions are really good ones. I agree.
Missy, do you know how they would check an on-lot system to see if it's adequate? Is there a test that could be done?
I'm not sure if there's tests, but I know it's based on area. There is a factor that's based on area.
Area what,
The absorption area of the field, yeah.
but you have no way of knowing what its condition is, or,
Yeah,
because
you
if somebody
have to
doesn't
go in
get their.
there, yeah, they probably like a probe or something like that.
But I mean, if they don't pump their tank out on a regular basis and you start
Right.
putting the solids out into the field,
Right.
then that's gonna plug it up, and we have no way of knowing that, and it could become a problem.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I think everything that's been said is really positive. I don't know which we should put in here.
anything else from the board? Did you want to say, I know I held you for a second there while we went, but anything else from the board before I go to the public? All right, Christine.
Okay, don't we have a parking ordinance in the works? Isn't there something parking? If there's a house with 6 bedrooms and each one has 2, and let's say everybody meets there, and so now every bedroom has 2 cars, and now there's 12 cars at the house next door to me that I share a road with. How does that factor in?
I think only if they can park them off the street in their own driveway.
Yeah, in their own yard.
So should there be some sort of,
It's in here.
is it in there?
Yeah, it's in here. Off-street parking shall be provided in accordance with 27-401 with a base of 6-inch crushed stone or shale in hard homogeneous all-weather surface. So they
That
got
doesn't
the-
say anything about the number of spots.
No, it doesn't. No.
So,
It would have to come
you know,
up
if
when they
there's a
apply
shared
for a
road
permit.
and they have 4 spots in their driveway and then they put the other 8 cars up alongside the road,
No, they have to be on, they can't be on the road.
right?
Who's gonna enforce
shared
it?
road, it's a private road.
She could call.
Who's to say that they won't?
Yeah,
Who's to say?
who's gonna enforce it?
That was one of my questions. Who's gonna enforce this stuff?
If there's a complaint, we'll enforce it. We can
Yeah.
pull the permit.
Who should she call?
Who should I call? Exactly. And who's gonna show up when it's happening and, will they be subject to, hotel tax?
Yes,
Yes, yeah,
that's part of it.
That's part of it.
So how many, in the tourism industry, there's a phrase called heads on beds. So I'm curious, does anybody know how many beds there are for heads in Smithfield Township?
The only hostelries in Smithfield Township are, the Staybridge Inn and the Shawnee Inn. I don't think there's any others.
Those are hotels, but Wyndham has how many properties?
Well, that's different because those are owned by the owners. They have, 32,000 owners. But if they rent those as hotel rooms, which they can do, I think they did have to pay the bed tax. If they don't, and the owners use them, they can get away without paying the bed tax.
Right, right. But that's a timeshare situation though.
If they rent them as hotel rooms, because, there's a fair number of them.
Who's they? Wyndham?
Wyndham,
Okay,
there's a fair number of them that, the corporation owns.
right.
And the corporation advertises on places, you know, like Airbnb or whatever, and they can rent them out, but they're gonna have to pay the hotel taxes, I'm sure they do.
Wyndham, correct. So the units that are owned by individuals,
What,
is the units that are, people have, I bought week 6 in February or whatever. Those people are allowed to rent their units out.
well, they have to pay the hotel tax too.
Correct, but essentially, it fulfills this
It's what,
kind of need. It's pretty similar to, it's a bed for tourists, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't think we're short on places for tourists to stay in Smithfield Township. There's what I'm taking a long time.
you can't rent out your house for any rest at this point.
Right,
We have a prohibition.
right,
So
right.
with this, if you follow the rules of the bed and breakfast and also have a permit, then, which is renewed yearly,
Right,
there's no problem with it.
but essentially, it's allowing Airbnb without calling it Airbnb.
No, it's not. Airbnb is a short-term rental up to 30 days,
And this
And
is
it's-
14 days.
and it's not.
That's pretty short term.
The difference is, this is supervised by the proprietor at all times, who has to be either on the site or next door to the site, all times when their guests are here.
And again, who's gonna enforce that?
Well,
If this can happen in any district, how many
well,
potential,
here's another, this is gonna be permitted. Airbnbs, if they spring out in Smithfield, are not permitted and not allowed.
Mhm.
The only way we really know about them is if somebody tells us about ads on, one of the sites, or a complaint comes from a neighbor next door.
Mhm.
But remember, before the age of Airbnbs, there were many, many managed, properties in this area where there was somebody who was the manager who was in charge of it. They worked pretty well. What happened was, as soon as Airbnbs came in, and a lot of them were built by, or let's say, acquired by speculators who said, okay, I'm gonna open this, there was nobody to manage them, nobody on site, nobody to keep track of who was there, and how many people were there, and how many bedrooms, all of that stuff. And finally, we took the path, I think about 6, 7 years ago, of outlawing it. And other communities have not outlawed them, they have all kinds of rules, and they've got all kinds of problems with them. A bed and breakfast is a different animal because it's smaller, it's only, let's say, 6 rooms, maybe 12 guests total. It's also got somebody on site at all times when guests are there, whether they live right next to the place or they live in the house itself. And the limit is 14 days, period. And the deal is, you know, you're gonna get served breakfast. So I think
So here's another question. What is the distance? What is constituted as breakfast nearby? Is there a radius, 5 miles, half a mile, 1 mile? What does nearby
I would say
constitute?
it has to be somewhere within the township, we could say that. But remember, there are very few places in the township to eat. There's the Shawnee General Store.
Euro
I'm
bagel,
not sure where else there is. any.
Euro bagel,
Euro bagel.
Euro bagel.
Euro Bagel. Any else?
Shawnee Inn.
So what if someone comes and visiting for the area and they don't have a car, they don't have a rental car, and they stay here and breakfast is 3 miles away?
Well, it has to be stated in the ad and the reservation that breakfast is not served on the premises. Where it's served, I mean, I think we can, deal in the minutia of this forever, but I think that it's reasonable to say that people want breakfast somewhere within, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is. If it's further away than that,
Who's gonna monitor their advertising?
well, I think we'll monitor it, because all we have to do is look at the ads once in a while.
How do you know where they're gonna advertise?
Well, they'll probably advertise in any one of the.
You have no idea of knowing.
You know, you can kill this by the minutia of what you wanna put into it to make sure you've covered and dotted every I. My feeling is, see how it works. If it works well, it's fine. If it's not, we'll come back and remind you.
That's not a very responsible manner
Well, that's
of
my response.
legislation.
You know, we make
Right.
laws here all the time, and my feeling is, if you make something perfect, first of all, you can spend forever doing it. Secondly, you'll avoid the things that might be really important that you haven't even seen anyway, because nothing is perfect. And I think with the comments we've had here tonight, which are good ones, you know, we've got a good framework to see how this works. But as far as saying, who's gonna monitor the ads? How far away is breakfast, you know? It's not a concern that I think we should take at this time. If it becomes a concern because people are complaining, well, that's another thing. But hopefully it'll work itself out.
I look at it from the standpoint of, if it was my house, it was next to it, what would I want? I wouldn't want excessive noise, excessive lighting. I wouldn't want a septic system that's failing and now I can smell the odor, which are the questions that I brought up. I think it's more along the lines of how are you disrupting the other residences? If that tenant or guest that comes in and they have to drive to Muller's Diner, I don't care. That doesn't bother me. I don't care where they advertise. I don't care anything about that. I just care about the residents and how they're disrupted.
Well,
And I think if you address those, you know, it could work. And if it doesn't, as you say, we can,
Come back.
you know, pull the plug on it. But I do think that we need to have hard language in here that addresses the potential disruptions to the neighbors, whether it's parking, septic, lighting, noise, any of those things.
we have it in here.
Yeah, well, it needs to be, I think it needs to be polished a little bit.
And look, I depend on the planning commission for sessions like this, because this is where we come up with really good ideas. And I
Make
think
a
we've done
motion.
that tonight.
Can I make a motion
All right,
that, the language be more defined in this new bed and breakfast ordinance to include all the things that were noted,
What?
the things that, the sewage, the nuisance, the lighting, parking, that all be addressed, so that when they come to get the permit, that they meet all these requirements.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we've addressed a lot of it here.
Right,
And built up this ordinance significantly for all those,
and we can just have that put into the language, into the, ordinance, and it'll resolve a lot of concerns. As Commissioner says, it's not perfect. The supervisor says, no, life is not perfect, it's true. And we need tourists. And in order to have money flowing into the township, sometimes we gotta bend a little bit.
So this is, what, is it gonna come back? Is it gonna come back to us? Is that it? Or
Well,
what are we doing here?
we'll take all of your comments, and when we meet with supervisors, we'll get into all this. I think they're all good ones. And I'd love to see all of them in here.
So this
Right.
will mean that we will have no true
Well-
residential communities.
Know what?
We will no longer have any true distinct residential communities. We don't now.
Why? Because somebody's running an Airbnb, I mean, somebody's running a bed and breakfast.
Exactly.
They're running a bed and breakfast.
No, we will no longer have
Anyway.
residential communities.
All right.
I just
Oh,
agree with
I
that.
didn't see that.
Well,
Okay, hang on. Yes, Brett?
To your point, Scott, you mentioned the bed and breakfast part of it. What if we just had a bed rental? Or.
Well, then we're back to the Airbnb problem.
Rooming house.
That would be another,
Hourly while we're at it.
Hang on, Christine. Come on.
I mean, I'm thinking about,
Oh, there's some of those around
is
still.
a guest house still a thing? I think long-term rental. Like on top of Deputy Drive, there's a friendly guest house, which is still.
Well, that's been there, cause that's been there.
It's an
Right.
apartment building.
But guest house is
It's really
not,
fun.
is that something, but there are bed rental, it's just like it's like a bed and breakfast, but it's without breakfast, and it has its own, it probably mirrors a bed and breakfast, all the regulations, but it's specific.
Yeah, but we don't have anything like that within this.
Well,
township,
we have the Boom Motel,
Yeah, whatever.
which doesn't really know what it is. It's supposed to be a
Changed names now.
motel.
It's called extended stay now.
Extended.
Uh-huh. Yeah, is it really?
Yeah.
It's more than 30 days.
Here's,
It's allowed, under property.
Wait.
Rent out or room rate, I think we do it all, but it has to be.
but I don't think we need a motion.
I mean, in Europe, they're called
Exactly.
hostels, they're called hostels in Europe, where you go, come off the trail and you wanna rent a bed. And
It's also called couch surfing.
All right.
It's the thing.
We used to call them
Hostels
crash
are-
beds. All right.
Like people hiking the Appalachian Trail would come down, all they wanted to get is a bed to sleep. They don't want to care about anything else, but a bathroom and a shower and a bed. and
Right.
They're hostels, they're.
Well, it's
essentially
not,
bed rent.
essentially, it's a hotel.
Right.
All right. All right, so James made a motion, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure there's anything to make a motion on. And it mostly looks like they're just asking for our comments. Because I think you're gonna make some revisions.
Definitely.
Is there any seconds to James's motion?
You just said we don't need to make a motion.
Well, no, but it's out there, if it's not a second, it'll simply die. All right, no second. All right, I think, you've heard the concerns of ours. It's probably best if you tweak it and talk about this maybe in
We can say it
November,
again,
that'll probably be best.
the revised version,
I would, that
the
would be my,
revised version.
that would be my suggestion, we'll bring it back in November, I prefer, I mean, you gotta do what you're gonna wanna do, I know, but I'm just saying.
No, I accept everything that's been said here. I think it's very-
One last comment, is there any consideration to having it not in all zones, but just maybe in RC and ED? Why in the R1?
I think it's trying to encourage you, you know, because as soon as you put prohibitions on one zone or another, it's cutting down who might wanna do it, and I think, you know, if we ended up with 7 or 8 or 10 of them, might be enough, wherever they are. As long as they follow all these rules.
Well, Bob just said that you can't imagine there'd be that many, but let's remember what happened with the party houses.
But that's what we're
They
trying to avoid.
proliferated.
Remember, with the party houses, we banned them totally.
Well, I know, I know that, but that, you had to ban them because they were being abused. It was an abuse in the residential zone. This is what people are concerned about, sounds like. That the residential zone will somehow be abused, or that people will take advantage of it, loopholes, or just flagrantly violate the terms,
No, I know,
which happens all the
Sex
time.
trafficking.
I went through it at the end of my lane, I went through it.
I'd like to make another
That was
suggestion.
a B&B, Airbnb. Look, bed and breakfasts have existed here for a long time, even though there aren't any right now. So traditionally, there hasn't been a problem with it anywhere in Smithfield. And they've diminished to the point where they don't exist. And it's, you know, it's another way of giving tourists a place to stay, where we really don't have any, and trying to encourage something that's a little.
I'm not doing any more public debate on this, Christine.
I have a question.
No, we're not doing that now, we're moving on.
Can I make one more comment?
You can, but we're done.
My other comment is, I see there's a lot of concern about this becoming a noise.
Right,
So that if you make it so that they have to serve breakfast, which is a tradition of a bed and breakfast, then they're going to have to be there on site.
yeah,
Whereas the language in here now says that their principal place of residence must be contiguous. Doesn't mean they need to live there all the time. So there could be guests in the bed and breakfast that are not even without.
that's really our biggest concern, the traditional bed and breakfast is on site. Food as well.
Right, and I think if you do that, you're gonna force
That,
It says,
the owner to be on site or somebody. in
it says
supervisor.
that, Dave, under section E,
no,
No, it
it
doesn't.
doesn't,
the owner shall be there when guests are on site.
but that's not
Section E.
what we're saying is
When you-
on site in that.
No, it says the owner shall reside on the property or continuous property. Does that mean he needs to be there every single moment of the day, or does that mean his residence needs to be?
It just says when guests are on site. I don't-
That's,
When guests are on site, he should be there,
Yeah,
period.
but I can live in a house, that's where I reside, but I'm on vacation in Cape May.
Well, then you shouldn't be running the bed and breakfast.
Yeah, I know, but if they're serving breakfast, then they have to be there.
yeah,
Or you gotta get somebody that you trust.
Somebody that can be there. Just consider it.
yeah, that's what I would ask them to consider. All right, move on here. Water gap wellness, 5C, what are we looking at in that?
No.
My name is Jim Kelly from Barry Isett and Associates,
Okay,
and I'm the engineer on this project.
oh, all right, let's wait for your easel.
And I just want to give you an overview of what they're proposing to do. At this point, we received technical review comments yesterday afternoon. So obviously, we didn't have a chance to do anything with that. At this point,
Jim, before we go any further,
sure.
could you describe exactly the location of this project?
It is at the resort conference center in, that's at the golf course.
Okay.
And they're proposing, here's, those facilities are right here,
Yeah,
and they're proposing this, building.
yeah,
for,
one of the outbuildings.
For recreational purposes, yes, only for guests at the facility.
I think, to answer your question, isn't this off of Wolf Hollow Road or something, like, what's the road that goes by it?
It's Mountain Farm Road. Is right here.
Cox Gap Road, is anything there that's?
Is this the old Water Gap Country Club?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's not the other one they're looking to build.
It's part of the whole.
And it's, you're looking to renovate one of the outbuildings to the.
They're looking for construction of a new building,
Uh-huh.
construction of an 8,000 square foot building.
Wow. Okay, and where roughly on the property is that gonna be located?
It's going to be, let me provide another plan that shows. It's right adjacent to the existing building.
What, to the main, what used to be the old country club main building?
It's adjacent to it. So as you drive up the driveway and you're looking at the old country club building, Which side is it on?
Here is the existing, clubhouse building.
Okay.
And this, new building is proposed right here.
And you drive up to the clubhouse building now?
Yeah, where's the road over there?
You drive up the road this way and pull into this parking lot. here.
Okay. So it's back in there.
Correct.
Yeah, but that's so,
I got
but
it.
that's so small, it's
I know, I'm
impossible
just,
to see, yeah,
hard
but
to see
right,
that too.
yeah. So you submitted this land development plan. And then yesterday, it looks like you received from the township's engineering firm, you received the, the review letter on it. So you haven't had a chance to look at this at all, right?
Well, briefly.
I mean, briefly, sure, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Yeah, briefly, I understand. What's our time on this, Ron?
The time began running last month, so we have until December.
Okay. So we know we have until December on this.
It's December, hold on for a second. I have December 11 is my calculation.
You know, because even as I'm paging through it, I mean, some of these are things that are probably hard to clean up. You know, existing monuments, those sorts of things. But I'm gonna ask you, Missy, when you did this review, was there a particular set of concerns and major concerns that you had with this?
I have two questions.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. The first question is, the recreation center is accessory to the existing use, but the existing use is not provided on the plan.
We'll have to add that.
Okay,
That's another
what is the existing?
The existing use is golf course and a resort conference center in.
Okay,
It hasn't been approved yet as a treatment center?
This is not a treatment center.
Oh, it was. Yeah, did I miss something?
may I ask?
Yeah, the wellness center seems it would be a,
It was never approved as a treatment.
yeah, I understand that.
Right, it's not a treatment center and it's not their intention to operate as a treatment center.
Drug and alcohol is all gone. That use is
That is
gone.
not, that is not associated.
Is it open to the public?
Yes, it's open to the public if you're a guest.
How do you become a guest?
Yes, you make a reservation. And I'm not.
So I can go
sure.
online and I can make a reservation and go there?
I'd have to find out. I really don't know
You have
about
to
that
stay
part of
there.
it.
No, you can't,
You gotta stay there.
you can't,
Why can't I?
because they don't take outside reservations, we've tried,
They don't take outside reservations.
right,
Outside of what?
What do they do?
nobody knows.
It's the Water Gap Wellness Center. Am I speaking of the same?
That is the owner.
Uh-huh. And so what's the name of the old country club building?
That I'm not
Is
sure.
that, does it say Water Gap Wellness Center on it, or is there a sign at the beginning of the driveway, or?
I believe that's what it's called, and, it's always been an inn, because it's never.
Yeah,
been
no, I
licensed.
understand. I
So
remember.
the 8,000 square foot building is not the wellness center. That's just recreation for the guests. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the entire property now is the wellness center?
Is it a hotel?
It's a inn resort conference center is what I've been told.
Okay.
All right, so I think we just table this until we get.
Yep. I'm gonna make the motion that we table this then until the November meeting.
Second.
Seconded by David Strunk. Any additional, is there any additional comment by the board?
No, that'll give them time to review concerns.
That's
from the
exactly-
engineer. Yeah,
That's
and respond.
that's exactly what I was thinking about.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are being requested that be added to the plan, things that are
That'll
missing,
give them
as you
a
know.
month. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm also, I'm curious about the conference center part of it. It's the first time I've heard
Yeah, let's do, we've never been with part of this.
And you're a
so-
supervisor, you haven't heard this, the board hasn't been.
Yeah, I think, you certainly, you talk with our engineers about, you know, the nuts and bolts kind of stuff, but when we come back in November, it sounds like the board and the residents want to hear a bit more about what's really
I'll make
planned to
sure,
go on.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll make sure that the developer is here.
Yeah,
So
that would be good.
That would be
Yeah,
great.
sure, sure. No, I understand, you know, because I know, you're working on the engineering end of it, you don't know all the rest, so I understand that, but let's, I say we do that, okay. Yeah, so we're gonna call it, anything else from the board? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so this is gonna be moved then to the November regular meeting, whichever date that happens to be. But yes, it'll be there, Alex, or whoever's taking notes, let's make sure that they're on the agenda, so they have a guaranteed spot, okay? Thanks,
Anyway,
all right,
for your time.
you're welcome, you have a nice night.
Thank you.
All right. Table by rooms. To November. Okay. All right, under new business, looks like we have two other things. We have special exception use criteria and proposed planning commission participation at the township trunk or treat and fall fest event. All right, let's go to the special exception.
May I approach for a moment, Mr. Chair?
Yeah,
I
sure.
did some work on what can be considered so that we're not starting from scratch.
Good.
It might be overkill, it might not be, it might be too much, but this is what we have here. Got one left. And basically, this issue was brought up from the motocross case.
Okay,
Because they had filed for a special exception use.
Mhm.
Arguing that it was a non-conforming use, it was a continuation of the non-conforming resort. And under our ordinance, if you are a continuing non-conforming use, I argued it was not, but
Mhm.
assuming it is, you can then get approval by way of special exception. However, our ordinance has no standards for special exception, not one.
What are we talking about? I'm sorry. Which one?
this one.
Is that the one 447 and?
No,
It's the motocross.
no, that one was.
Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
So these are just some things to jog as to whether or not any of these should be the specific standards, because as you know, the special exception has to meet specific standards. And then if they do, then the burden shifts to the objectors to show that the project is adverse to health, welfare, et cetera, in a way that would be more than normally anticipated. So,
Could you repeat that last sentence? I'm sorry, I didn't get.
What
the-
sentence is that?
The last sentence you just said.
that if the applicant meets the ordinance provisions, the specific objective ordinance provisions of special exception use, it is presumed to be valid, unless the objectors can show either through health, safety, or welfare issues that the use is going to cause a problem more than would be normally anticipated from that use. So supervisors had charged me with saying, we gotta put some standards in here. Whether we wanna put all of those in or not, another story, but they're just there for discussion.
I say all of them.
So is this,
Because I think if we had that in for the motocross case, we'd be a lot better off.
is this for, a new ordinance or is this just a?
This will be adding to the ordinance to say, if you're going to get special exception use, you must now meet
Okay.
these criteria.
Edit of it.
There is no criteria right now that they have to meet.
Okay.
Did you look that up? Did you look that up today?
No, I don't have these cases.
Ron, can I ask, the memo, is that in addition to what is before the commissioners?
When you say in addition, what is before the commissioners? Because I've seen nothing.
Ordinance number 524.
Okay, where's that? Let me see.
In here somewhere.
It's turning. 524. Okay, that's at the very end here. Okay. Well, I've not seen it, so that might well take care of the situation. It's at the very end of your binder if you're looking for it. Okay, well, that works too. That at least.
Looks like ordinance number 254.
Yeah.
That's the one you're talking about?
Yeah, and the number 2 then goes into the details with respect to what are some of the specific requirements. The on-site nature of the activities, operations, types of materials, scale of operation, environmental impact. So yeah, that would work. I did not know we had that. That was, I don't know if it came across my desk or not as a special exception use order.
Alex, is section 3 missing? It looks like it goes from section 2 to section 4.
I noticed that as well. I can check on that.
Thank you.
No, Ron, let me ask this here. So what you're saying is because our zoning ordinance has a section on variances,
Correct.
but not the special exception.
It does have a section on special exception,
Where did I miss?
but it
Right
does
here.
not give you the
No,
criteria.
No, it's, where is it in our zone? You said 5?
Ordinance number 2.
No, that one ordinance number, I want a code section.
I have to get the ordinance. I
But that's okay, that's all right.
It's in this.
Because-
I don't have that.
Because- Because it's usually kept, because I was usually looking for it in the, in the spotter, in the zoning hearing board stuff. on there.
There used to be an ordinance here, but not anymore.
Yeah,
We're talking about a different ordinance. So James said he doesn't have that ordinance.
I have it now.
You have it now, okay.
And he's talking about the present ordinance, not where that section is.
no, I'm talking about where it's located.
In the
Because
present
normally,
ordinance.
because special exceptions and variances are handled through the zoning hearing board, and that's usually where you put this sort of stuff. So you put in, right now we got section 27.
If
which
I
is-
had the ordinance in front of me, I could.
I have
get
it,
but-
no, I had it wrong, you want it?
But that's on.
This is in the E code one,
It's
okay.
not a book. It's gotta have the book.
That's it, that's right, but no, the variances, for example, are in 27, which is the zoning section.
It's under
It's under
27.
803. Yeah, it's under zoning and, for the zoning hearing board.
And what does it say? What does 803 say? Because it just says 1, 2, or 3 sentences and that's it.
Yeah, it's, for all intents and purposes, it's the 4 state law criteria that you need to obtain a variance. It is either unique physical
About special
circumstances, such that the property cannot be developed in strict conformity and an unnecessary hardship not
I
created by.
misspoke. I meant the special exception. What does the special exception?
Well, that's what I haven't been able to find. That's what I was looking for.
And I understand that's why this is being put before you, because such a section doesn't exist.
Okay,
Go to that.
yes, this is what I'm talking about here. So,
Yeah, let's go to index.
okay. You want to finish?
No, we're good. That's it right there.
Is this the section?
No, I'm looking on our E360, the coded one. Supplemental, right?
Additional.
Yeah.
Special exceptions.
He's looking for in the book.
Very top of it.
I'm just letting you get this. I know we have it.
We got, okay, you
But
already,
we don't have the specific criteria.
well, this might be, this might be
We
part of,
argued the order cross case yesterday.
oh, did you?
Yeah.
Very
Wow.
good.
That's so.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, you know what? Because normally you would have found it. Normally you would think you would find it in here, for the functions links, you would think jurisdiction variances, zoning here, special exception.
Go to non-conforming uses, that's where you're gonna find it.
That's where we're gonna find it. We're there.
That's where it's under
I'm on the ass, it's up here.
I think it's under bullshit.
Yeah, well,
I think that's 27. It's under B.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. A lot of that is.
well, in any event. I'm gonna say this, but
Is that it?
no, it's coming up, it's, the internet is.
That's where it is. Basically, it says if you want to alter, change,
Mhm.
or somehow revise an existing non-conforming use, it has to be by special exception.
Okay.
And so that's what motocross argued, that it was, the resort was a non-conforming use.
Here we go, now we're getting to the non-conforming, it's elimination of,
Not structure, right?
That the golf course
Go
is
to
a
the
non-conforming
beginning.
use?
there it is. It's in here,
There you go.
yeah, up here above, yeah, alteration of non-conforming, yeah, all we had under the non-conforming use was a very simple couple of sentences, yes.
Which is?
A non-conforming use is any lot or structure that existed before. And then it goes through the changing and the and the alteration of them, but normally you would find your special exceptions and into the variance or something like this. And now I understand why.
Yeah, it just says that
It
you
just-
can get special exception, but it doesn't give us any specific standards. Now, yesterday I argued there are specific standards under section 303, which is a overall prohibition that you can't have anything that's bothering, annoying, et cetera, to neighbors.
Right.
That's a standard, and Judge Zuley seemed to maybe say
Yeah.
that might work in some other things, but
Is
we
that-
really need some specific standards, and this ordinance is fine as far as I'm concerned. I just didn't know that we had this.
Is that in your memo?
What?
What you just said?
No, all that is, those were just things to say, we're gonna do an ordinance, do you want these in as conditions? Specific conditions of a special exception use,
Right.
and instead of that. Delineated item, this ordinance basically does the same thing, just a little differently, if you look at at the bottom of the third page and the,
Last page.
or bottom of the second page and top of the last page, you'll see
It's all that.
where they have those
There you go.
conditions. So at least there's something there.
Yeah.
So now, if you'd wanna add stuff to it based upon my memo, you certainly could. But this works, this gives us something to work with here.
Ron, can I ask you a question? Are these
Sure.
standards, when the zoning hearing board is considering a special exception, if one were to be put into the ordinance, are those separate from the zoning ordinance? Like for the environmental standards, are the criteria for special exception separate from the zoning ordinance standards? Or?
No, well, this is a zoning ordinance standard, you're changing the zoning ordinance,
Changes on everyone.
and you're making those sections numbers 2A through E the standards now.
I do under, in your memo, there is a section 3 that points out environmental standards, right? And then there is when, A, B, C, D, and E, and those are strong standards to put into such criteria for special exceptions. Just a question of, but your zoning ordinance already has some provisions for those sorts of.
Right, so as they say on the top,
Yeah.
these could overlap with what we already have, but like I said,
Love it's in.
I did not know that we have this, and this says environmental impacts to be generated. Odor, noise, smoke, dust,
Right.
weather, glare. So
It's on here.
it's there, we have that.
It's in your memo, too.
Like, yeah, the language, could it be strengthened to specifically include provisions for flooding concerns, protection?
That's up to the planning commission to decide. Again, they may believe that, and I don't mean this to be cute, that those are too draconian, if you will, that's being a little too much. If someone has a pizza shop and they would now want to make it into a bagel shop and, they have to go through all these hoops, but, the backside argument is that will go to variance, but, variances aren't that easy to get, or at least they shouldn't be that easy to get, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So I'm, I did a quick read on this, so I'm okay with this. This covers, at least it gives us some standards. If the commission wants to add more based upon my memo, you certainly can, but you don't have to.
Can you give me some examples of non-conforming use or is this just for non-conforming?
Right now, the way I read the ordinance, yes, an alteration, change, et cetera, of a non-conforming use. can be done by special
So
exception.
how does this relate to the motocross trail?
Because they're saying it's a continuation of the resort. The resort
Was that a
was
non-conforming?
a non-conforming, been there for 50 years or
Yeah.
more or whatever, so it certainly was there before zoning. That it's a continuation of the resort
Uh-huh.
and the recreational amenities that a resort presents. And as a result, we should be given special exception use to allow the motocross track.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we need to do something. I'm not familiar enough with what this is gonna provide for us.
This provides standards that are typical for second-class townships in the state of Pennsylvania for special exceptions. This would be the minimum language that any second-class township should have. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, basically what the motocross people are saying is you have no standard in your ordinance, so we should get this automatically.
Yeah, I understand the intent.
So,
I'm just trying to say, okay, once it's in there, it's gonna apply to other things.
well, yeah, it's gonna apply.
Yeah,
to
but I'm
Every
saying-
non-conforming use.
It may
When they
apply
make
to
a change.
other things, but I don't know many special exception uses in our ordinance. There used to be tons of conditional uses, which were uses that were determined by the elected officials. I don't know many special exception uses in the ordinance, although I haven't read it word for word, so I could be missing a few things, but this is the one that struck out to me, because this is the one obviously that
Yeah.
the motocross people are using.
I'm just trying to think of, like, for example, the Gem and Keystone Restaurant is a non-conforming use, right? Isn't that in an R zone or RC? Because I remember when we were talking about
Sign.
the sign, Michael kept bringing that up as a non-conforming use, so assume that it is, whether it's.
Where is this, David?
Gem and Keystone Restaurant, in West Shore. So if they wanted to turn that into, other than a restaurant, they wanted to turn it into whatever, anything else. Do they have to address parking? Do they have to address lighting? They have to bring the whole thing up to
They have to address 2A through E.
2A?
The end of the order, the second page of the ordinance, they have to address the 2A through the 2E provisions. Some may apply, some may not apply, but they have to address those.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe we should have more requirements in there, such as parking and all of those things.
Again,
And then we're getting into a land
The
development.
memo covering.
Then we're getting into something that would be required in a land development plan. By not having it in here, then they would say, well, we don't have to provide a parking requirement.
Well, you would say you have to, as you were saying in the other ordinance, you have to comply with the noise ordinance, you have to comply with the lighting ordinance, you have to comply with the off-street parking ordinance. Put those in, those are simple little lines to put in, that's your call as planning commissioners as to whether you'd wanna do that.
Can I ask, so that, my original question about, so if those should be in these criteria, if there's certain things like lighting, signage, sound, that should be in these provisions for special.
Unless the provisions of, say, noise, lighting, sound, say that any use that comes before the zoning board or the supervisors must comply with these sections, then you don't need it there, because you already have it there, but I don't know if that's what those things say.
I would say the intent of this is great, I just think it needs some more thought. And I don't think there's enough in here, or I don't understand it well enough to prove it, or, recommend approval. I don't want there to be some holes in this thing where somebody comes in and says, well, it doesn't say here, I have to address parking or septic or whatever issues that might come up.
Couldn't we,
Are we discussing an ordinance? I'm sorry to bust in, but I believe that we're discussing an ordinance that was not properly advertised on the agenda. Is it ordinance 254? Am I misunderstanding something? Is that a draft ordinance?
No, that's an existing.
That's an existing ordinance?
It is on the agenda, it does say special exception use criteria.
It has nothing to do with it. That's nowhere ordinance is not in that.
It doesn't matter, it's a special exception use criteria, that's what this is.
Right.
And that,
But you're reviewing an ordinance that.
no, we're reviewing a list of things from the solicitor that may go into an ordinance that's going to get put down the road.
So don't you have a copy of ordinance, what is it, 524?
254.
254.
254. And that's the proposed ordinance, right? Is it the
No, it's not a
ordinance?
proposed-
You
it's
get
not a-
review
it's
of
existing.
the ordinance that should
It's not a
be happening?
proposed ordinance and it's not a workaround, Christine.
This is this is the planning commission, right? So they are, considering recommendations to the board of supervisors on provisions as it relates to special exception use criteria. And our solicitor, the community solicitor rather, has indicated that there is a need for these criteria. The solicitor provided a memo, and there's also some criteria before the planning commission. They're discussing what, the difference between the memo and those criteria, and potentially amending the zoning ordinance to have provisions. So amending chapter 27 to add provisions for special exception.
I get that part.
Whether it relates to properly advertising or not, it's really, this is merely an advisory board.
Yeah.
Well, can't we just add another paragraph, F, and say that must adhere to all the parking, the noise, the nuisance, the signs, the lighting ordinances? And then you have to make reference so that they can, as Ron is saying, they can't come back and say, well, what that you're saying, David, that since it's not in there, we don't have to comply. But if you put that paragraph that says that they need to pay attention to all the ordinances, correct?
That covers it, yeah.
And that way they can't say, well, it doesn't apply to me. Now they have to go into that ordinance and look at that it does apply or it doesn't apply.
Yeah, the commissioners can make a recommendation to the board that, these standards be modified to include F, which references like the
That would be my
stormwater ordinance,
recommendation.
the signage provisions and things of that
But don't be
nature.
specific on, don't say the signs or the noise, just say all ordinances,
Yeah,
because,
because you might forget something.
yeah, you might forget something.
You can certainly make that
Yeah, because
recommendation.
then it's all encompassing.
That should be understood, but yeah.
What say you, Jim?
I think Ron's memo is actually a good guideline for all of us. And to say, to include David's wording there. To add a paragraph to the ordinance that says just that's all terms and conditions of the ordinance
Must be complied with.
As applicable, shall be.
as right. There it is. Thank you, David.
Of the code of ordinances or.
Yeah,
right.
Or of the zoning,
Yes.
of the zoning ordinance
Right.
specifically.
Right.
So chapter.
Well, this is in the zoning book, right?
Right,
Contained herein.
right. And then any non-duplicative items from Ron's memo can also be incorporated into this. That could be another part of your recommendation as well.
Yeah. I like the belt and suspenders version. I'd like to add Ron's memo just the way it is.
No.
Some of it is.
It might be a little
I
much.
don't- I don't.
There's more for discussion than addition.
All right.
There are certainly certain provisions in Ron's memo that aren't in this, in the text before you that could be recommended for incorporation.
Yeah, all of these things are addressed in the ordinances, that's what I'm saying.
So simply reference the ordinances then.
I think.
Would that be illegal from
No, no,
a solicitor standpoint? If that provision were to be in there, does it need to be more specific or is that sufficient as
I
worded?
understand what Mr. Strunk and, I think Mr. Moses are saying that if we put it in there, we restrict ourselves, but if you don't, I think that's just too open. I mean, what are we concerned with? We're concerned with traffic, concerned with stormwater, concerned with sewer, concerned with regular water, concerned with the neighbors and the people in the community, lighting, noise, off-street parking. It really isn't that difficult when you just sit down with a cup of coffee and say, okay, these are the things we want to cover. These are what we're going to put in here. If we miss the fact that there may be some banner that we missed or some banner provision, who cares? As long as the neighbors aren't getting, hounded by some bad use. So I put them in,
Yeah,
Specific.
yeah.
Okay.
That the noise ordinance, the lighting ordinance, the off-street parking ordinance, the stormwater ordinance, this and, they also apply to this use.
Yeah, but if it's a non-conforming use and it's relatively innocuous, and if somebody wants to come in and put something that's more cars, more, whatever. Is that just because is that automatically allowed, or is there? Or is it
No,
only,
I don't think they can do more than 50%, I think.
that's, yeah,
Yeah, but
I
that's
have to look
expansion.
again and see.
That's expansion of, in building size.
that, no, not just building size, expansion and use area as well. Really what we're looking at is this, if I think I have it. Well, Ron, tell me if I'm in the right ballpark here. We used to have a lot of variances, which is really the legislative flip side, the legislative decision flip side of what were special exceptions. That's just probably why we did not have much in the way of special exceptions in it, because what you're really looking at is, what you're really looking at with these is for uses that may require special exception approval through the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board should consider the following items in their deliberations of the special exception permit application. That's what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Exactly, and again,
That's what we want.
And to address what Commissioner Strunk is saying, it may well be that if you're going to change a use, when you're not going to change the number of employees, you're not going to change the building footprint, you're going to, again, instead of making pizzas, you're going to make bagels, you don't have to comply, you can put that in too. So that there's some relief for people who just want to make a simple change without having to jump through all kinds of hoops.
Oh, no, there'll be hoops. Because if it's a non-conforming use, but special exceptions aren't just non-conforming uses.
Oh, again,
Yeah,
there's other uses to it, yeah.
yeah, it can be for other uses,
Yeah, I'm
It's-
talking
it's-
about this specific.
yeah, it's the flip side of a variance.
Yeah.
Variances started, no, special exceptions started, yes, but the conditions that you do through the zoning hearing board. Okay. I think we should do these, or literally, my suggestion would be exactly as I said, which is for uses that require special exception approval through the Smithfield Township zoning hearing board. In addition to whatever, whatever must be, reviewed according to state law, the following additional standards should be reviewed. The following addition elements let's say standards, should be reviewed under the zoning hearing board's, whatever their special exception hearing. That's really what we're looking for.
Right, and right now, we're just doing language, because the ordinance would have to then be properly written and then
Yeah, then
come
you have
to
to
you for proper review.
Yeah, then it comes back
County
around.
Planning Commission for proper review. Right now, we're just doing language and,
Mhm.
as they say, spitballing exactly what may or may not be what we should use, so.
Okay. So I'm sure we're gonna be seeing this again, right?
Okay.
All right. Very good. Hey, trunk or treat criteria, or participation, excuse. Did we skip this?
Is that one event or two separate events? Is there a
No,
fall festival
here,
and
they-
a trick or treat, or are they the same
I have no idea.
altogether?
We did this, no, it's not here. These things are all, it's not on our agenda, so.
So we're just asking if you would consider, hosting a truck or attending our, trunk or treat and, it's on October 20th.
What day is that?
It's that Saturday.
Saturday?
This coming Saturday?
No, October 26th.
What time?
That's from 1 to 4.
October 26th,
Was that the one where I
Yeah,
for the hot dog?
yeah, for the food.
Free refreshments. There you go, Ron.
I
already saw, I bought the hot dog for that event.
It's held at the park,
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be right over here.
in this parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're hoping for a good event.
What do we need from them?
Yeah. What do you want to think?
Just if you would just consider hosting a trunk and just attending.
Thank you.
What does that mean, hosting a trunk? Like bring our car and have it full of candy?
Yes.
Yeah, you decorate the whole trunk, and the kids come up and they trunk or treat.
Back in the day, when I had it tied up on the 26th.
I'm,
My son is gonna be coming down with some friends, so.
Okay.
I cannot do it.
maybe we should call this trick or diabetes.
That's good. Yeah. All right.
Young lady, where are we gonna be? And where's this at the park?
It's
No,
gonna be
right,
right.
right.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the 26th. It's,
Thank you.
All right, before you adjourn, Scott, perhaps Ron could just fill us in briefly on what happened yesterday in court on the back nine case, because that's why we're discussing special exception.
Right.
When you hear some.
All right, I'll give you the quick, Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
But as you may be aware, the motocross, track and Mountain Manor lost before the zoning hearing board.
Mhm.
They wanted to be able to use that property for a motocross track, and the zoning board said no, based upon various, provisions. Mountain Manor took an appeal of that matter, and Attorney Amori would know the way it works is you file the appeal, and then you prepare briefs based upon the record. The record is the testimony that was presented before the zoning board and or any exhibits that were presented before the zoning board. So those briefs were filed, and yesterday was argument on the appeal in front of Judge Zulik. The motocross people made two different arguments. Number one, that again, it was a continuing non-conforming use, just a change of a continuing non-conforming use because of the resort and the resort's recreation amenities. And since it needed to have special exception approval and there were no special exception standards, they should win. And in the alternative, they said that if you don't accept that argument, then the activity is a membership club that is permitted in the R1 zone. And so that should be another reason why they should be permitted to take that activity. The arguments that were made by Attorney Journey on behalf of the zoning hearing board, myself on behalf of the township, and attorneys Kidwell and Weitzman on behalf of neighbors and interveners basically said the resort had stopped at least by 2018 when the main building burned down.
Oh, before that.
A lot of the activities stopped way before that. Thunder Creek closed in 2007.
I was gonna say, it's more than a decade easily, yeah, all right.
So that there was no resort for a continuing use. So even though the ordinance may not have special exception standards, it doesn't matter because it's not, it wasn't a non-conforming use to extend. And as to membership club, it's not open to the public. You have to be a member. And the membership club says that you're not there for profit, and they are there for profit. They're selling hoodies and shirts and T-shirts and this and that and all.
Well,
that.
even if you're a club, you can't be a club and create a nuisance to everybody around you
You
anyway.
know, and then thirdly, my argument was, again, under section 303 of the ordinance, there's a specific section that says any use in the township is prohibited if it causes annoyance to the neighbors, property, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. I would think that Judge Zulik, since he already granted the injunction,
Yeah, he granted.
will probably decide in the favor of the township. But if he doesn't, I still think the township is okay, because the injunction, he basically decided really is a public nuisance. He really didn't make it a decision under the zoning ordinance. So even if we lose under the zoning ordinance, we can still continue to push the fact that it's a public nuisance.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
His order reads that way in there.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, so we'll see. Now, I'm told that they're thinking about doing some event this weekend. So we'll see what this event is all about, that they're gonna be using electric motorcycles, which make no noise. So we'll see if that actually occurs. They were gonna do something a couple of weeks ago, but Mother Nature on a Sunday stopped them because it rained, if you remember a few Sundays
Yeah,
back.
the last time it rained.
Are they still allowed to operate? No, they're not allowed to. In fact, Judge Zulik was so insistent that he does not even allow the owner's children to operate motorcycles on their own property. That's a very significant. When you say their own property, they don't own the property though, do they?
Well, Mountain Manor does.
Whatever the.
Mr. Byrne can have his kids, in fact, he asked, can I have my kids run their motorcycles on the property? And the judge said no.
Okay.
That's a pretty severe
I get
hit.
it.
Thank you, you know, as far as I'm concerned, and I get lucky every now and then, but, that was certainly, lucky.
All right, thank you, Ron, very much.
So anyway, we'll see. My guess is a month or so or two,
Yeah.
we'll have a decision come down.
It's the same caption number, right? I have the, Joe was about to give me the caption.
Yes,
Okay.
same caption number.
All right, I make a motion, we adjourn?
Public comment?
All. In favor?
I,
Forgot
But
that
hang
part.
on. What, Christine?
I'd like to go back to, bed and breakfast update. Can't tell you how much this concerns me. We've just had, within the past few months, a sex trafficking operation where they were keeping women bound and they shipping containers. Right, off of 209. So what a great opportunity to take them out of shipping containers and put them in a nice comfy bed. And after 2 weeks, move them out, rotate them, keep
Come on,
moving,
that's-
keep
that's-
moving them, right off 80. Don't laugh, it's not funny.
It's not funny, but that's not the intent of what we're trying to do.
I don't think it's the intent, but by gum, if I was gonna be sex trafficking, I would,
So you go
I
to a
would love it.
permitted bed and breakfast, so you,
if it's not really a bed and breakfast. If that was the intent, it's not ridiculous at all. Route 80, major corridor, we've got drugs and hookers here like nobody's business. It's not funny. There's no way of monitoring any of this. Yeah. Also, special exception, Wargap Wellness is also coincidentally in need of a special exception for their recreation facility, so the timing of all this. Be aware is what I'm saying. I'm curious who's gonna be applying for these permits or special exceptions or bed and breakfast keepers. I'm curious to see who will be the first one stepping up to the plate.
Brett,
Was agenda item 6A, was that tabled?
yes,
Thank you.
at their, yeah, they've requested that, earlier, that the PA Commons Realty skip, but yes, that's that one.
Second comment, have we ever considered putting either walking paths or bike paths in our township? Township created bike paths or walking paths.
There are in the various parks. I know.
Yeah, there's like one between the ball field and Wargap and stuff, but obviously this is not a pedestrian or bicycle friendly, this whole township. I was wondering if we might consider putting a bike path from Bill Wargap to Shawnee so that people can walk without danger between those two.
are you saying it should be a bike path and a walking path?
Well, one or the other,
So it works like the McDade Trail is the same thing.
yeah.
All the various competing uses don't seem to have a problem with that.
Right, and it's so hard though to walk, to pedestrians or bicyclists. There's no shoulder in the roads, and if kids get out, when I was a kid, I got out of Smithfield and I walked home. Can't do that anymore, there's there was no way
He
to,
used to drop me off on 209 and I walked all the way up.
there you go.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's a whole different business, and kids can't walk home, because there's no safe place to walk, and there's so much traffic. Anyway, it's just an idea, maybe we can pass around, but initially have a bike, have a walking or bike path between Shawnee and Dover.
Brett, as great as that idea is, we don't have that power for you. Please bring it up with the supervisors. I think you probably find an awful lot of support for those kinds of ideas here. Because yes, that actually would be terrific. I think
Costs would be an issue.
you know, there's cost and an issue, but there's some existing right. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Yeah.
That's something that has to be with the supervisors, as much as I appreciate that, which
There was a plan at one time to extend, I guess it was the Freedom Trail or something, all the way from Delaware Water Gap to connect with the McDade Trail. But, there was some problem with one of the property owners, I don't remember who it was, it may or may not have been Shawnee. And, there was also been a plan to connect, the new, Marshall's Falls, Park all the way down to, at least, or the park in front of the township here. The biggest problem there is just the land that's owned by, the Scott brothers. And whether at some point we could get an easement to the trail there. But the rest of it is fairly open. The land behind the Large Street Shopping Center, all the way, down to Front Crossing Road here on Seven Bridges Road, is owned by the state. And, probably put some sort of a trail there, even though they're reluctant to let us do anything with it, but they're not possible.
Might be able to be done within the right of way of the road, I'm not sure.
if you're along the stream, yeah, it's swampy and everything.
Right.
That's really what it is.
Scott, like you go up to Tobyhanna Township,
Mhm.
there's bike lanes all along 940.
Well, that's flat though. The interesting thing about the Pocono Plateau is that it's the plateau, it's actually really easy, but yes, you're right.
That was made possible through a grant through PennDOT, and so the township can apply for such things, and
Yeah.
there is a match required for such grants. I think it's a multimodal grant, if I recall correctly.
Okay,
But, you know, that is certainly a thing that the township can do, and the planning commission under the MPC can help the supervisors with grants and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, the planning commission has a lot of potential, you know, assistance provisions in addition to just reviewing land development plans and ordinances.
no, we know that part of it, but I'm glad to hear there's a rest of it, because that is very positive. It is it is an awfully nice thing.
It is, yeah, and then the trails.
For an area to enjoy.
The trails are nice, that they do require, every landowner that they go through has to agree to the easements that occur, and so it requires a lot of cooperation, but when they're implemented, they're wonderful, because it helps everybody. So, you know, those are, and we can talk about that in the EAC.
Yeah, it's something
Yeah.
the EAC is gonna recommend.
Yeah,
One thing that I don't think exists in Pennsylvania, but does exist in Vermont, the government, allowing not only easements, but liability for anybody that does have the trail,
Mhm.
which helps a lot.
Yeah, that helps take that, whatever the risk they think that the landowner is going to have. Yeah, I would consider it very positive. It's gonna be terrific. All set?
Yeah. Are we adjourned?
I make a motion, we adjourn?
You did, and I
Second.
second.
All in favor? We're
do you
good.
want me to send it to the supervisors?
I guess, you must have been with us today.
I am.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
Gonna be here. I promise I won't take it like I did the last time.
Yes. Must be because it's Halloween. I didn't think about it.